Alrighty, so with the group stage action of the Leeds Cup tournament now over and the knockout round about to begin, in fact, it begins a little bit later tonight, I thought this would be a good time for me to look at some of the headlines and some of the things that we have learned so far in the Leeds Cup tournament. And I think the first thing that I've been mentioning a lot, and it's something that is at the top of everybody's head in terms of this Leeds Cup tournament, is the sheer chaos that has happened in these games. I mean, the chaos just reigns supreme in some of these games, whether you have Leeds Cup after dark moment where just some crazy goals has been scored late in the game where there's the game just kind of gone completely off the rail and doesn't make any sense whatsoever, or you have like a 17 round PK shootout, or actually it's not even 17 round, it was 19 rounds. I actually made it a little bit shorter in terms of that crazy PK shootout that we saw between the Whitecaps and Leon. And even in the final group stage game, where in the game between Toluca and Colorado, there really isn't much to play in that game, knowing the fact that we know the Rapids are probably going to be eliminated and Toluca is moving on. We saw goals that happen in the free goals happen in the last 5 minutes of the game where defense was basically not a thing in that one. So yeah, I think that's what kind of make this tournament very entertaining, and in some way that's also why I mentioned many times about this tournament, very similar to the MLS's back tournament, where in that tournament during the COVID shortened season, we also saw some games that just got completely off the rails and doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The other thing is that there's been a lot of scuffle and extracurricular activity in these Liga MX and MLS matchup, and I think this just kind of shows you that yeah, the players do care about this tournament. Like for those do you think that this tournament is just going to be a glorified friendly and is going to be a bit of a cash grab and that the players don't really care about this tournament? Nope. This tournament, you see players, they really care about this tournament, and I even mentioned how many times in the review I've mentioned, well, it looks like there is a bit of a coming together, or there's some choice words that's been shared between both of these teams and an MLS and Liga MX kind of opponent, and that's is the reason why I've said that this is one of the big storyline. Again, you're going to have some dust up, you're going to have some unlikeliness and chippiness in these Liga MX and MLS matchup, and I think while that you kind of don't want that as a head coach, you don't want to have games kind of gone a little bit sideways in terms of those extra activity. Fans want to see that. Fans want to see these players care. Fans want to see that there is that rivalry, and that there is that pride between both of the league. Whenever both of this league clash with each other in a matchup. So yeah, I mean it's definitely living up to what we were hoping for, where these players do care, and you're going to have dust up in terms of these two leagues clashing together, especially in a Liga MX and MLS matchup. And then the third thing we learned is definitely opening night. So on opening night, obviously Apple and Leeds Cup probably got their Hollywood script. They got their wish in terms of seeing Lionel Messi get his debut, and what a way for them to end the Hollywood script by seeing Lionel Messi score a walk-off free kick goal against Cruz Azul. Like I've said this before and I say it again, you just cannot make that stuff up. Like you could literally put that in Hollywood and people would say that it's just way too scripted. And I know there's also some haters that have said that it was completely scripted, completely rigged in a way where they make sure Messi not only get his debut, but he's gonna do something crazy to end that script. But I just think that it just happened to be that is the case, and that again, that moment. I think between that goal that Messi scored against Cruz Azul to win the game for Miami, between the wonder goal that we saw Zlatan did against the against LAFC in that Al Trafford. Remember him scoring that 40-yard stunning volley all over the head of the LAFC goalkeeper. I mean, that's gonna go down as two of the goals that's gonna be played down the line, even 20 or 30 years down the line in the league's play. So yeah, definitely this also kind of helps viewership too, because now people really are keeping an eye on the game, and especially I think it also break a record in terms of viewership in that game between Cruz Azul and Inter Miami, just because of the Messi effect. And then the other thing I learned is that there's been a lot of PK shootout, especially in the first couple of days. Now, I think the reason why we saw a lot of PK shootout in the first couple of days is, knowing the fact there's only two group stage game and every points really matter. you can see both teams in these early matchup tends to be a little bit cautious and tends to really not go for the win because well yes on paper if you go for the win you get 3 points compared to two if you win a PK shootout. If you don't get a win, then all of a sudden you find yourself behind the eight ball and we said doing like these group stage game in the World Cup or even in the Champions League we seen in Europe that how it's very important. Well, actually, not really in the Champions League, but more like in the World Cup where it's very important for you to get wins, but also you don't want to fall behind the eight ball and then you're basically putting yourself in an uphill battle. And it's the same case here, but it's even more extreme because you only get two group stage game. Like you could lose the first game, and then you could be finding yourself facing an impossible mountain to trying to climb out of it, heading into your second game of this Leagues Cup group stage. So as a result of that, I think teams kind of took a very cautious display, despite the fact that they know that they could lose a point if they do not win this game in regulation. And as a result, we saw a lot of PK shootout. I think in the first couple of days, I think we saw like 5 or 6 of them in just literally the first 3 days of Leagues Cup group stage action. And as we go along, you saw fewer penalty kick shootout because teams know that they got to go for it. They can't. These PK shootout is not going to be enough for them to move on. And I'm also thankful to say that one of the things that I was worried when they announced the PK shootout if the game remains tied after 90 minutes is that what happened when we do get to the point of the second match day where if it goes to a PK shot it really doesn't matter. And I think the only time we saw that happen was the game between the Chicago Fire and Puebla where yeah that PK shootout was pretty much completely meaningless, and yet that PK shootout went like 11 rounds, which again just brings back to the first point of chaos basically reigns supreme in the some of these games. But for the most part, we didn't have a lot of PK show where it really didn't mean anything thing whatsoever. So I think Leeds, the whoever organized the Leeds Cup tournament, kind of dodged a bullet in terms of, especially with the way how many points you get with winning it. I feel like they in the future probably they might put it at 3 points. So that means that yeah, there actually is really a lot to play for. Though then again, if you push it to 3 points, then basically I think every team is gonna just play for a PK shootout because it doesn't really matter if you win it in regulation. If you go to a PK show, you win it and you get all 3 points, so forth. The other thing I've noticed is that goal songs being played even if the away team score. Now this is kind of an interesting one because I get it. Yes, when you see some of these matchups, especially when you see a popular Liga MX team kind of and their fans kind of took over the stadium, you don't really kind of notice even when the away team, which is the Liga MX team, basically do. But they do it even with all MLS matchup, and then it just kind of feels weird when that does happen. I mean, I don't know. Depending on how you look at it, whether it's weird that you hear a goal song being played, even the away team score, or the fact that you think that this is of course fair, so forth. But either way, I kind of find it weird. Only in terms of the all MLS matchup. In some of these matchup, I kind of didn't find it weird because if it's like a very popular Liga MX team, let's say if Club America is playing against St. Louis, and how Club America put four goals past them, I mean, it kind of felt a little less weird because while St. Louis did have a lot of fans and 80% of the stadium were St. Louis as City fans. Oh, there was some Club America fans, and they celebrate and almost like it just feels like it's a normal game, even though it's an away team score and they play the goal song and also had the lights effect. The other thing that I've learned so far, and this is the thing that I had as a question of how will these lower tier Liga MX team do? So we talk about these top tier Liga MX teams like Tigres, Rayados, Club America, Chivas, and all sort of these kind of top tiers Liga MX team and how they are going to be ones that we've seen before in the CONCACAF Champions League, and they've done relatively well against MLS opposition. But what we haven't seen is what about these lower tier League MX teams that are not really familiar, like let's say Querétaro, Mazatlan, FC Juarez, Puebla, and so forth and so forth. Well, it turns out that yeah, these lower league Liga MX team clearly are no match in terms of most of these MLS team. I mean, unless you're basically facing Austin, I think Austin is pretty much the big outlier. Where yeah, sorry Los Verdes fan, but it feels like their narrative of them not able to win these international tournament game kind of continue. Uh, Throughout this Leeds Cup. But really, most of these teams that are kind of lower tier league MX team are kind of like the bottom dweller for many years. Yeah, they were no match in terms of most of these MLS team. I mean, some of these teams get absolutely destroyed by MLS teams. So yeah, it just kind of shows you that yeah, it's kind of like MLS where I would say that you could even say the same thing about some of these lower tier MLS teams, where these MLS teams that is not doing very well this season. I mean, some of them have also had their struggles in terms of facing against these more well-known Liga MX team. But this is really the first time where we where this was kind of a big question of how good is the entire league in Liga MX. Well, it turned out we found the answer. Some of the best team and some of the well-known team are still gonna dominate over MLS team, but some of those lower team are probably not going to do so. Which, speaking of which, that's where we get to the next point where yeah, these top tier Liga MX teams still have their dominance over MLS opposition. So teams like Rayados, Tigres, and so for all these teams that are considered to be favorites of winning the tournament, yeah, they really put a stop on their opposition, especially Rayados. I mean, they really put a stop on their opposition against both RSL and the Seattle Sounders, and I think it just shows you how when you do face against some of the cream of the top of the Liga MX team, yeah, you're gonna be in for a challenge, even if you have home field advantage, which you could argue home field advantage is in quotation mark depending on which MLS team you face, because those fans are gonna dominate the stands. I mean, we saw it whenever America and Chivas play, especially when Chivas play against Sporting KC. That was kind of a bit of a surprise, seeing how many Chivas fan was at Children's Mercy Park, because Sporting KC has one of the most loyal fan base in the league. But I was really surprised the fact that 70% of that stadium was filled with Chivas fan. The other thing I would say is the refereeing in this. I don't think it is as bad as what some people think. Like, I know this is going to be a very kind of objective kind of discussion of how good the refereeing has been. Some people say it's bad, some people say it's good. It also depending on if you got the refereeing decision go your way, which I can tell you there have been some refereeing decision that have gone against my team, both Minnesota and the San Jose Earthquakes. But I don't think in general, if you're looking at a neutral perspective, at least in my opinion, I don't think it's as bad as what people made, and it's as bad as what I thought it was. I think it's kind of right near the tier of what we've seen in terms of how pro refereeing these games. And I also find it funny that fans basically complain that if there's a call goes against their way, they immediately say, "Yep, pro basically screw up another call." And well, some of these referees in this competition are pro referees. This competition, because it's organized by CONCACAF, you're going to have CONCACAF referee in this, and that's kind of one of my worry, because I've seen some of these CONCACAF Champions League game and see how referees are sometimes are really bad. This year in this tournament I was one of the things I'm worried, but it isn't as bad as it is. Now I will say this: there has been some missed call, and there has been some times where I see when they did go to VAR to check to see if a play should be overturned or not. They either do it wrong, they wrongly overturn it, or just decided to wrongly keep the call on the field. But again, that's is kind of something we've seen even in MLS, and this is why I said the refereeing in this tournament is kind of right on par of what I've seen with some MLS refereeing. I mean, sometimes it's been bad, but there's been times where I think it is an improvement, and it's definitely an improvement to what we've seen with CONCACAF referee in these Champions League game. In fact, I think ever since the introduction of VAR, I feel like refereeing in these CONCACAF or these CONCACAF referees have done a much better job in terms of it. And I wonder how much is that because of the fact that now they have some leeway, the fact that they don't put on they don't have the pressure of, well, if they get the wrong call, then yeah, that's pretty much it. It's on them. But now they have VAR to use. They might feel like, well, if they do make the wrong call, at least VAR can maybe bail them out of a wrong decision, and that's why there's that saying, whether or not if the referee wrongly um, call was considered wrongfully call or the call is mistakenly called, that they need to overturn it. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of some of the storylines and things I've learned so far in the Leeds Cup is the fan attendance. So, the attendance, I think so far it's been a hit and miss. I mean, I have seen some games that are completely sold out, and a lot of that has to be games that involving MLS team versus a more popular Liga MX team. So, whenever you have games that feature Club America and Chivas, those games are going to be sold out. But if you see a game, let's say, like, for example, when Dallas play against Necaxa, yeah, that's not going to draw a crowd whatsoever. And especially when you have MLS team facing against these lower tier Liga MX team, or if it's an all MLS matchup, I have seen that the attendance hasn't been as good as what people think, and that's because in these all MLS matchup, you've seen it happen in league play too. So it's kind of like what we see in the U.S. Open Cup, where when we do see an all MLS matchup, people don't really care because they've seen this happen in the Leeds Cup and they don't want to see it again in the U.S. Open Cup. So yeah, I do think it's been hit and miss, and also I think fan attendance also depending on how each team package their Leeds Cup ticketing, because I know every team in terms of the season ticket package, it could depend on how they cover it. They might include both of the group stage game as part of the package, or they might include one of them, or even in some teams I know when in terms of these Leagues Cup, they don't even include it whatsoever. So that can also can tell in terms of the attendance, because I know that there are some teams they don't include the package in terms of some of these Leagues Cup game, and you can see the attendance basically doing no, because nobody's gonna spend like $40 or $50 just to see an MLS team face against another MLS team, or a team that is not a popular Liga MX team. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of some of the things I've learned so far in the Leeds Cup. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also let me know in the comments below what do you learned so far in this Leeds Cup tournament. Do you like this tournament? Are you falling in love with this tournament? I mean, I'm definitely falling in love with especially what happened in the first point of the chaos just being reign supreme, and that no, it feels very entertaining in terms of watching some of this game, and there really isn't at any point of the group stage game. Notice how I didn't say that this game looks like a slog fest. I mean, there were maybe a couple, but definitely not enough to say that, yeah, that is going to be a slog fest, and that this Leeds Cup tournament is going to be bad. I mean, there's been so many good games that has happened that it's make this tournament really entertaining to watch. And again, these players, they really care about this tournament, and we're going to continue to see that as we get into the knockout round, where the intensity gets even more higher than what we've seen in these group stage games. But as always, let me know in the comments below what you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.